Hey everybody, it's episode 5 of series 2 of UIO, the podcast for teen girls. Hugs to everyone and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teen girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today we're talking about what it's really like to be a teen girl now. Growing up is exciting, lots to look forward to and experience, but the teen years can be challenging too. Loads of everyday things suddenly become questionable. All a normal part of growing up. Let's talk to our 2 guests today for the inside scoop. Let's meet 15-year-old Divaina from Kent, an aspiring creator, and 16-year-old Leah from Hertfordshire, who has her sights set on becoming a barrister. Welcome, Divaina and Leah. Thank you both so much for being our guests today on UIO and talking to me about your experiences here and now, so to speak. Not to worry, I know that you don't represent all teen girls the world over, as each person is an individual and has a unique experience. But so many things bond you, bring you together as a group, such as being part of a social media generation, for example. One thing for sure is that the teen years can be difficult just because. I've been there and done that, but I do understand that each generation has different things to contend with, owing to the backdrop of the times. Also, there are great opportunities for growth and learning. Again, it's really exciting to have you both as guests on UIO. And I just want to talk to you about some of your greatest challenges as a generation of teen girls and some of your greatest opportunities. And so let's start off talking about transitioning from being a girl to a teen girl. It's an interesting time and can be awkward too. What did you need to be happy and healthy? I'm going to start off by asking you this question, Leah.
In order to be happy and healthy, I found that I needed the idea that I was powerful to be drummed into me. When I transitioned in from being maybe a preteen into a teen, I was at an all-girls school, and the majority of my teachers were women, and even the male teachers that I had were saying to us how powerful women were. And it was a Catholic school, and we were taught from the Bible how powerful women were, and I think I really needed that because at that time I felt very powerless, and it really inspired me, and I've kept it with me to this day.
That's amazing because that is a difficult transition. Is there anything you want to contribute to that, Divaina, before we move on?
I think the transition from being a preteen to a teenage girl is incredibly difficult for, I think, a lot of the girls that I've met and myself. I think the thing that really, really helped me was my parents' support. They've always been there for me. I have such a good relationship with my mum, and she is my female inspiration. She is so amazing, and I feel like because we have such a good bond, we can talk to each other about anything, and I think that really helped me when I was transitioning from a preteen to a teenager.
That's really good. Some major support from both ends. And so, Divaina, let's start with you this time. You've got another transition from being a teen girl to being a young woman. What are you looking forward to, and what concerns you the most?
I'm definitely looking forward to being able to do the things I want in a way where I am incredibly interested in females' rights. I feel like I would have more opportunities to support that cause.
What about you, Leah? Is there something that you want to say about what you're looking forward to and what concerns you the most?
I'm really looking forward to having more of my independence and expanding my circle just out of like the people I've gone to school with and people that I've met at clubs, and meeting actual adult women who probably share more of the same views as me.
That's very exciting. It's a big wide world for both of you waiting. That's really, really cool. You know, the concept of finding happiness in the space you're in is something I thoroughly believe in and drum on about all the time. What do you value most at this stage in your life and why? What excites you, Leah?
I think that having my friends around me is really exciting, and my circle of friends, I would say I only have maybe like 5 close friends, and we're all very close. We've all come from different paths of lives, and it's learning about different cultures that really is exciting me and making me feel really happy. And having them there to support me also is really nice. It's exciting, like having such a close friendship with people. It's like my first ever proper friendships.
That's really important because friendships are so key to getting to know other people and seeing what other people's values are and so forth and so on. What about you, Divaina? Is there anything that you feel that you value most at this stage and it really excites you?
I definitely agree with Leah. I think my friends are so important to me. I feel like I've never really had true friends until I went into secondary school, because I feel like the friendships I've formed now are really going to stick. I will have more friends in the future, other young women, but the friends I have now are definitely the friends I will have all my life. But my family always makes me happy. So I have a very good bond with my family. And other things that excite me and make me happy are definitely reading, writing, just doing the things that I love, I think, with the people I love.
This is really good stuff from both of you, because I think it is so important to be surrounded by friends and family and really value that, because so many times we find that people don't necessarily have that in their teen years. There was that piece of research that came out most recently about loneliness, and many teenagers found themselves quite lonely. So, Divaina, what concerns you? What would you like to change about this stage in life?
I feel like the things that concern me might concern most teenage girls. It's definitely like beauty, like the way you look, like your image is incredibly important in this day and age, especially since we have social media to kind of propaganda the ideal beauty. I think that's definitely something that concerns me. I feel like some females feel like they need makeup to look more beautiful, and some females just really love makeup in general, but it's always like the perfect girl has makeup on, but she doesn't look like she has too much makeup on. She is thin, but she has a big butt, big boobs, It's very difficult, I think, in this day and age.
That's a lot of pressure. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's hear from Leah on what concerns you at this time, Leah.
I completely agree with Divaina. Like, the way that women are portrayed in the media really concerns me and kind of scares me to grow up. Just that idea of being perfect, and also the sexualization of me and my fellow peers as teenagers. Like, a lot of the things that we do are seen as sexual, or like can be or are twisted to be seen in a way that obviously it wasn't meant to. And like that concerns me growing up, because it's like, can I not just live without being seen as kind of an object?
It would be very nice, but sadly, what's happened is that it seems to happen consistently, and it's something that we do need to look at what we can do about. I'm going to move around a little bit on the subject of sexism and equality. I want to talk about whether there are spaces that you feel, unwelcome in, or times when you feel marginalized because you're a girl. And if you want to talk a little bit about objectification as well with that would be great too. I'm going to start with you, Divaina, on this question.
I feel like a lot of boys make a lot of jokes about females and how if a female is sharing her opinion on something that she is incredibly passionate about, they say, oh, she's on her period, that's why she's so angry, that's why she's sharing this. And it's like this big excuse that they're trying to like pull to like stop females from sharing their voices, from speaking up. And I've been in class and I've had a teacher shout at them for whatever stupid thing they were doing, and it's disgusting, because all you hear in the background is like, oh, she's on her reds, when
that's terrible.
Yeah, and they're just trying to make an excuse for their actions without really listening to some females and really understanding what they're trying to say.
Sadly, a part of it is immaturity. A part of it is, the world that we all live in, continuing to perpetuate and corroborate that these things are okay. They're obviously not okay. I was doing a podcast on dating, and one of the things that the relationship counselor talked about is that when people do that, it is a form of bullying. It's a form of control, and it's much more about them than it is about you and their self-worth and so on. But let's hear from Leah about this concern. What do you think that girls can do to help address these problems?
I think that I wouldn't say the more noise you make, but the more you point out to a group of people or to someone that what they're saying is wrong, maybe the more that they'll take notice. The more adults you make aware of the situation, maybe the more they'll start telling the students that that's not okay to say, and maybe it won't rub off on our years, but maybe it'll rub off on the younger ones, like the year 7s, 8s, and 9s.
Right. Divaina?
Yeah, I totally agree with your point, Leah. Sometimes, though, when you do say, oh, this is wrong, sometimes I feel like, especially maybe it's just the boys in my school, I don't know. I can only say from my perspective. But it feels like they want to break the rules and they want to go over the limits and the lines and to be like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm saying these things. I'm hurting these people. Oh, this is so funny. Ha, 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 ha. But maybe, like, let's say someone says a disgusting sexist joke. I think sometimes just being like, oh, what do you mean by that? Would be more effective. They are then forced to have to explain that sexist remark that you had just said, and that might make them more aware of what they are saying. But yeah, definitely getting teachers to hold, like, to talk to boys, to talk to more people about sexism and why it is wrong would be very helpful also. Yeah.
Now those are really great points. You pointed out some wonderful things that girls can do themselves, but also what adults can do as well. But are there any other adults? Is there anything in getting parents and guardians involved? Divaina?
Let's say a boy says a sexist remark or whatnot. A teacher hears, she calls a meeting with his parents. I feel like the more you talk to the mother of the child, I feel like the more the child would understand. I'm not saying men can't understand, like, how sexism works or, like, if something wrong is going on, but most of the females have gone through it. And I feel like if that boy or that girl or whoever has made that comment on for whatever reason, if their mother talks to them, if their female inspiration, someone that they know that they look up to who's a female, talks to them and explains to them how horrible it feels to, like, have these words said to them, then the more they might understand.
That makes sense. Leah?
I agree with you, Divaina, but I also feel like obviously parents will want to defend their child, so it may go it could go the opposite way. It could be seen as, why is this girl have it out for my son? It was just a joke. That could also be the other way it was taken, and it could create more of an issue or a divide between the girls and the boys within the situation.
Yeah, that's an angle to look at it from, which is a good segue to talk about communication, because communication is so key to healthy relationships. And I think somehow it is about educating. But it's the way we navigate the world, experience life. And I remember talking to older siblings a lot, or just watching them as I grew up. But maybe I didn't talk to my parents as much as I could have. What happens from your perspective that makes communications awkward? And what can parents and guardians do to leave that door ajar, not get it closed in their faces? Let's start with Leah on this one.
I think that what makes conversations with your parents awkward is the fact that they're not living in your shoes, if that makes sense. They're not you, they're not seeing the world from your eyes. And in order to maybe make conversations with them easier, they should, start the conversation but not finish it, almost.
Okay. You got that, parents?
I think they should start the conversation by saying, yeah, this has happened lately. Maybe, well, let's say a parent says to their child, the Brett Kavanaugh case has come up lately. Like, if this happened to you or someone that you know, you can talk to me about it. I'll believe you. But you shouldn't just jump straight into it. I think you should start the conversation and say that, or this has happened lately, and then let the child talk about it to you, so you get their perspective on it rather than putting your perspective on them.
So there's a great deal of lessons that we can learn about listening and listening to what our children, are actually saying. And I want to keep with this same theme and ask you, Divaina, but do you ever feel outside looking in, such as when parents do bring up things, like the Brett Kavanaugh case, and they tell you their take on it, or when you hear all these reports coming out about teen girls? Or do you think adults are perhaps outside looking in? I guess what I'm getting at is, what can we do to bridge the gap between the generations?
So I think communication is incredibly important. I'm very lucky to have really good parents that I can talk to about things such as the Brett Kavanaugh case and share my perspective and my opinion on it. I remember when I was little, my mum used to cut out from newspapers articles on various things, and we would talk about my opinions on them without her actually saying what she wanted to say first, and we would discuss it afterwards. So I think that's an incredibly, like Leah said, I think that's a really good way to talk to your children about different cases and bring up things such as sexism and whatnot. One thing that happens that I've noticed from my friends' parents and other teenage girls' parents is they might talk to their children, but after trying to understand what's wrong with their children and see how they're feeling, and after the children open up, they might actually just get really angry about the situation that the child has talked about. And I think that's something that parents should really keep in mind. You need to be a support for your children, not someone who is against them.
Yeah, it must feel like that sometimes, that the parents are against. But, I'm thinking that probably what's happening is an effort to protect and to educate. But these are really good tips on how to listen and, hearing it straight from you both. Let's move on and let's talk about emotional and mental well-being. I mean, after the research came out about the rise in 14-year-old girls cutting themselves, I read lots and lots of analysis, and one article I read stuck with me. And the author said that the real problem is that we as a society expect people to be happy all the time and have lost sight of the fact that sadness is a natural emotion to feel if something has gone wrong, like loss, upset at school, and etc. And I want to know, starting with you, Leah, do you think this author is right that teen girls feel the pressure to be perfect, to be happy all the time? And if so, how does this impact their mental well-being?
I do think teenage girls do feel the pressure to be happy all the time, because there's social media, specifically Instagram, where, in every single photo, maybe a social media influencer is smiling, or, she doesn't portray anything bad that goes wrong in her life. Well, TV shows just show us that we should be happy all the time.
Yeah.
They show us that we have to be perfect. We have to always look good, even when we wake up.
Yeah.
And who looks good when they wake up,
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. And I do remember earlier in the conversation, it was you, Divaina, who talked about that. And I think from the project that you did at Rich Mix and everything, if you want to tell us a little bit about, just add a little bit to that.
So for the project that I did, it was for work experience. So we, myself and 8 other girls, worked with our sisterhood, Sisterhood. And it's basically a company that turns girls' self-doubt into self-creativity. And we specifically made a project to recognize different cultures and different beauty in different cultures. And for that, we did a presentation at Rich Mix. So I read a poem called Stand Up, Be Proud and Fight. It just talks about females and female empowerment and unity and just gender equality.
I mean, it was really key, and it really connects with what we're talking about here, because one of the issues about the pressure of feeling like you have to be perfect and defining beauty in a certain way, this talked a lot about defining your own beauty standards and finding ways not to have to feel that you have to be perfect all the time. And I think that's really, really key. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other issues that girls might face these days. There are too many for us to possibly talk about, in this one podcast. But we live in a changing world in which we'd like to think we've come a long way. But many people still face prejudices. We've talked about sexism, we've talked about objectification, but there are prejudices owing to other things, religious associations, racism, and colorism, for example. And I want to talk specifically about colorism. It's come up in the news a little bit, and why this is a concern for teen girls today, and how you might propose dealing with it, Leah. And maybe you could explain a little bit to our listening audience what it actually is. I was talking about it a bit today to someone, and I had to explain to them what it means.
Well, colorism is very prominent in our society. It's where fairer skin and where being lighter is seen as more beautiful or more appealing. And it's a real issue because if you're growing up as a teen girl, you already have confidence issues. I think most teen girls have confidence issues, and that's just being you. But if other people in social media and just the whole world is telling you that you need to be lighter, to be beautiful, and you're dark-skinned, well, obviously you're going to really feel it. You're going to feel it 10 times more than, let's say, a white teen girl who's really conventionally beautiful.
Right. And I think this is so key, what you just said, conventionally, because it's conventions. And this is what we recognize that Divaina participated in was all about, was setting your own beauty standards and changing the face of beauty. How do you propose, Leah, dealing with this? And we'll get Divaina's opinion as well.
I think there needs to be more diversity within social media and beauty campaigns in the TV, because without us seeing that darker skinned women can be beautiful and can win, Miss America, Miss World, Miss Universe, Miss Great Britain, how are we going to see that, we're appreciated and possibly even be one day seen as part of the conventionally beautiful?
Yes, I think that's really key, to be able to keep going back to that definition of what is beauty and where does it come from. Divaina?
I think, like Leah has said before, representation really does matter. If young little girls do not see representation of someone who is their skin color, someone who's of their nationality, ethnicity, whatnot, then they will feel like, oh, I can't really do that because someone else is up there, like someone who isn't my nationality, ethnicity, whatnot. And I think having a good support system also matters. Mm-hmm. So having good friends that maybe aren't your ethnicity, nationality, to support you, or if there's some sort of discrimination against you, having them back you up and help you, or anyone help you, really.
Yeah, maybe start your own campaign.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a great segue to social media, because social media has a lot to answer for. But there's some opportunities, obviously, with social media as well. And we've talked about it. Both of you have talked about social media quite a bit throughout this podcast. And to be honest, I couldn't see how you couldn't talk about it, because you belong to a generation who hasn't known life any other way. you've seen the ins and outs of social media, and you continue to grow with it and to be a part of it. But I'd love to hear from both of you about what you think can be done to improve social media, particularly for teenage girls. Can we start with you, Divaina?
So I have more, I don't know how to explain this, I have more raw pictures. So I myself have done this multiple times, and I really shouldn't. And I've seen this multiple times, but stop putting filters on, or start something where you don't have filters on. You don't have, you haven't edited a picture. You've just posted that natural, raw photo as it was in that moment without having to pose maybe, or just something where you look genuinely happy in that moment. And I think if more people started to show what a realistic day is, you know, a realistic happy picture, then I think that just would help more, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it's getting back to the real deal. So many things are filtered, so many things are glammed up, and it's getting back to the essence of who a person really is, that person's true self. Would you like to add something to that, Leah?
Yeah. I believe that I've seen a lot of pro eating disorder accounts, and something called Dinspiration a lot on my social media, and it just pops up randomly sometimes, and it will stay on your feed for a long time. And I've been on social media since I was in year 7, and now I'm in year 12. If I was in a vulnerable state of mind, that would really trigger me, and it would make me not want to eat, and it would really have a really bad effect on my own mental health.
Yeah, it really sounds like there's a bit of education that needs to happen from lots of different angles. One is taking these things down, these sites, tackling and challenging them, but being sure that parents and guardians and friends and aunties and whomever and schools are educating and having these conversations with girls. Well, we're coming to the end of the podcast, but before we get out of here, usually on a UIO podcast, I ask the woman who I'm interviewing for hot tips for teen girls. But today I'm going to ask each of you for hot tips for parents and guardians, and then anything that you'd love to say to teen girls. Can we start with you, Divaina?
So a hot tip for me for parents is try to understand your teenager. Try to talk to them and create a safe space in which they can talk to you. Don't yell at them for something that they have done. Just try to talk to them about it and understand their reasoning for why they might have done something, or just talk to them. Communication is incredibly important, I think.
That's really great. Leah?
A hot tip from me would be to just listen. And when you're having a conversation, remember that conversations work both ways. If you want your teen to be honest and open with you, you need to be honest and open with them.
Yeah. That's amazing tips from both of you for parents and guardians. You have anything that you'd like to leave with other teenage girls, your peers?
I think that all women are beautiful, and I think that everyone should love themselves, and that women are amazing.
Yes, that is absolutely amazing. Divaina?
Like Leah has said, women are amazing. Just find people that you share common ground with. Speak up for yourself. Speak up for them. Just unite in the power to have your voice heard. Just talk to more girls. See their opinions, help them out. Work as a sisterhood.
That's amazing stuff. That's great stuff from both of you. Real girl power. So thank you both, Leah and Divaina, for joining UIO. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That is a wrap for UIO on being a teen girl today. So much relevant information from both Leah and Divaina. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. Today, I pray for exciting and healthy experiences for teen girls as they occupy the space they're in, and also look towards womanhood. I pray for confidence and strength for them individually and collectively, and also love and support from those around them as they tackle the many challenges they face. And I also pray that all teen girls know that they're absolutely beautiful. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. More timely and relevant podcasts coming at you soon. We'll talk to you more about that off air. Meanwhile, hit me up on Twitter at Sonja Lewis, Instagram at Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook, on thisandthat.co.uk. Tell me what you want to hear about on UIO and keep sending those questions on any of the episodes. Take care of you inside out, and remember, it is UIO.